In the shadows of a shifting global economy, a silent revolution is unfolding, one that could redefine the future of global manufacturing. For decades, Made in China was the label that dominated the world, from smartphones to sneakers, laptops to light bulbs. China was the indisputable workshop of the planet. But now a new contender is quietly rising, not with bombast but with resolve. That contender is India. This isn't just about low wages or cheap labor. It's about strategy, scale, and timing. As the world's geopolitical compass realigns, as Western democracies grow wary of over-reliance on China, and as supply chains strain under the weight of political risk, India is stepping in, cautiously, confidently, and methodically. Let's start with the fundamental shift in global sentiment. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the fragility of global supply chains centered around a single country. When China shut down, the world panicked. Factories stalled, shipping costs skyrocketed, and Western nations realized the cost of putting all their eggs in one basket. That basket was Beijing. At the same time, growing tensions between China and the US, as well as China and its neighbors, including India, have pushed global companies to look elsewhere. And the destination increasingly drawing attention isn't Vietnam, isn't Indonesia, but India. Why? Because India offers something no one else does at this scale: a massive workforce, political stability, democratic governance, rising infrastructure, and a government that wants to open the doors to global manufacturing. India's rise in manufacturing isn't an accident. It's the product of deliberate strategic policymaking. Under the Make in India initiative launched in 2014, the Indian government began laying the groundwork to transform the country into a global manufacturing hub. But the real acceleration came after the pandemic, when New Delhi realized that a rare window had opened. And this time India didn't blink. First came production-linked incentive (PLI) schemes, a game changer. These incentives target sectors from electronics and pharmaceuticals to textiles and semiconductors, offering billions of dollars in government support to manufacturers who set up shop in India. Then came the infrastructure push: roads, rail, ports, and smart industrial corridors. Logistics costs are being slashed, and bureaucratic red tape is being slowly but steadily trimmed through digital reforms like single-window clearances and the National Logistics Policy. And global capital is responding. Apple is perhaps the biggest symbol of this shift. As of 2023, more than 7% of all iPhones were made in India, a figure expected to jump to 25% by 2025. Foxconn, Apple's Taiwanese supplier, has committed over $1.5 billion to expand its India footprint. Samsung operates its biggest mobile factory globally, not in China, but in Noida, India. Tata Group, a homegrown conglomerate, is now entering chip manufacturing, electric vehicle production, and electronics assembly, roles once exclusive to Chinese firms. The shift isn't only coming from US companies. Japanese, South Korean, and even European manufacturers are rerouting their supply chains, diversifying away from the Chinese mainland, and placing long-term bets on Indian soil. And here's what's crucial: this isn't just about labor cost. Yes, India's labor is cheap, 1/5 the cost of China's urban workers, but companies are increasingly choosing India because of its scale and stability. While China's population is shrinking, India is now the most populous country on Earth, with over 600 million people under the age of 25. That's a workforce not just of hands, but of minds, increasingly educated, digitally savvy, and ready to build. China didn't fall from grace overnight. It took years, even decades of policy overreach, rising authoritarianism, and geopolitical friction to create the vacuum that India is now quietly filling. First, there's the demographic drag. China's population began shrinking in 2022, marking the start of what some economists call a demographic time bomb. Fewer workers mean higher wages, aging consumers, and eventually declining productivity. Compare that to India, whose median age is just 28, compared to 39 in China. India's labor pool is still growing, still young, and still affordable, giving it a long runway for industrial expansion. Second, there's political risk. Western multinationals watched nervously as Xi Jinping tightened his grip on Chinese companies, cracking down on tech giants, locking down entire cities during COVID, and stifling dissent. The unpredictability, coupled with rising US-China tensions, makes foreign investors uneasy. India, on the other hand, is far from perfect, but it is stable. It's a democracy, it honors contracts, and it plays by global trade rules. That matters when a company is deciding where to pour billions into long-term manufacturing. Then there's the global sentiment shift. The phrase China plus one is now standard among CEOs, meaning firms want a second manufacturing base outside China. Increasingly, that plus one is India. But this comparison doesn't stop at China. There's also Pakistan, a country that could have been part of this manufacturing moment, but isn't. India versus Pakistan, a tale of two trajectories. While India surges ahead, Pakistan remains mired in economic crisis. Its manufacturing sector is shrinking, not growing. Frequent power outages, political instability, and reliance on IMF bailouts make it a high-risk zone for global investment. Where India rolls out the red carpet for factories, Pakistan is struggling to keep its existing ones running. Pakistan's textile industry, once a competitive force, is now facing shutdowns due to energy shortages. In contrast, India is attracting global players in technical textiles, synthetic fibers, and smart fabrics, climbing up the value chain. Foreign direct investment tells the story in numbers. In 2023, India attracted over $70 billion in FDI. Pakistan, in the same year, struggled to cross even $2 billion. The difference is not just economic, it's structural. India has embraced reform, digitalization, and global alignment. Pakistan has clung to subsidy models, military dominance in economic policy, and short-term firefighting. In essence, India is building, while Pakistan is borrowing. One is shaping the future, the other is surviving the past. The story of India replacing China isn't about loud headlines or overnight miracles. It's about quiet systems being built, infrastructure humming in the background, and a mindset shift that's turning the world's largest democracy into the world's next factory floor, and eventually, something more. Let's be clear. China is not disappearing. It still produces more than a quarter of the world's manufacturing output. Its logistics networks are unmatched. Its supply chains are deeply entrenched. But that's precisely what makes India's rise so astonishing. India is not merely competing in textiles and toys anymore. It's climbing the ladder, and fast. Take these developments. Apple now manufactures over 14% of its iPhones in India, and that number is projected to double by 2027. Foxconn, Tata Pegatron, and Wistron, key Apple suppliers, are setting up or expanding major facilities across India. Semiconductor fabs are breaking ground in Gujarat and Karnataka with the help of US and Israeli firms. Global auto giants, like Hyundai, Kia, and Tesla, are building or planning EV manufacturing plants in India. Drone manufacturing, defense production, and solar panel fabrication, all once seen as Chinese strengths, are now targets of India's new production-linked incentives. The policy engine driving this is strong, and getting stronger. Make in India, PLI schemes, Startup India, and now green hydrogen missions and Semiconductor India. Even the logistical bottlenecks, long considered India's Achilles heel, are being fixed. Freight corridors, mega ports, like Mundra and Vishakhapatnam, new expressways like Delhi, Mumbai Industrial Corridor, and fast-rising railway electrification projects are making India's supply chain more competitive than ever before. The future isn't loud. It's strategic. China's rise came with propaganda, parades, and projections of power. India's rise is different. It's quieter, but smarter. It's not about replacing China's authoritarian industrialism with another copy-paste model. It's about becoming a new kind of factory, one that's open, democratic, digitally empowered, and globally aligned. And perhaps most importantly, India is winning, not just on cost, but on trust. In a world increasingly divided into geopolitical blocs, India is a country the West can invest in without fear, a country Japan can build with, a country Australia can trade freely with, and a country African nations see as a partner, not a patron. Why this should matter to the world, and especially to Pakistan. For decades, Pakistan saw itself as India's competitor, but today, the gap is no longer narrow. It is a chasm. Where India is exporting software, Pakistan is importing wheat. Where India is hosting G20 summits, Pakistan is hosting IMF delegations. Where India is building semiconductor fabs, Pakistan is struggling to stabilize its currency. This isn't just about economic divergence, it's about two national mindsets, one focused on production, investment, and global integration, the other locked in geopolitics, debt cycles, and domestic instability. India didn't become the next factory of the world by chance. It did so through deliberate strategy, long-term planning, and a willingness to reform, even when it wasn't easy. And now, as the world begins to decouple from China, India isn't making noise. It's making products. It's making partners. It's making progress, quietly, steadily, irreversibly. This is not just India's opportunity. This is India's moment.